Hello, I'm with a Shield for Men, and
Hello.
he was sharing links with me, data links and blog posts and studies, and he shared this link of a blog post that I read years ago that I was trying to find again because I've forgotten who wrote it, and this is actually a very important post because this completely destroys feminist gaslighting and lies, right?
Yes, it destroys the myth that women couldn't work or were not allowed to work, and that men are in the economic driver's seat in our society. It
Yeah.
is actually women.
Yes. And I want to interject one thing. It's not a myth. It's a lie, right? It's a
Yeah,
lie. It's a lie. It's propaganda. It's a lie. It's not a myth. A myth's a polite way of framing it. Okay, like women know
yeah,
they deselect lower status men. They know this themselves. They go for higher status men, so they know the cause of of gender roles. They are, period. So, okay, this is also a thread introduction. This is also a thread on Twitter. Click and scroll up. That's probably gone by now.
yeah. We
2018.
don't we
That's 5 years ago. That's like 50 years in internet time.
yeah we don't need to read the introduction necessarily
Right.
because it's not really that important. The
Let's
important
go through
stuff
it
is
quickly. Let's go through it quickly. Privilege
okay.
is indeed about choice. It's promptly it's prompted by a claim that women are not privileged because privilege is about choice, right? Now deleted. Privilege is indeed about choice. The only way people can deny female privilege is then to claim women's choice is a false decision, and men's false position is a choice, which is exactly the lie that feminists tell. Yeah, lie. I'm reporting that feminists are wrong about women being forced to stay at home. We all know this is a lie because they are being allowed, not forced. They're being allowed to off the back of men. To stay at home is a privilege. Historically, only some women had that privilege. Men were forced, not allowed to go to work to support women, and men were forced. Actually, in Islamic countries, men are still forced to provide for women right now, like it's a medieval era, right? The difference between
Yeah, and women can by law keep all the money that they earn. They can keep that to themselves. They don't
yes,
have to spend that money to the husband or to
or the family,
family.
yes. So they use the family supporting the family as a pretext, but then they don't force the women to do it. So it's a lie. Trade cons are liars, by the way. The difference between being allowed to do something and being forced is important. It's the difference between employment and slavery, between sex and rape, between imprisonment and accommodation. Okay, let's. Interesting thing is, if a child support per slave is a slave, being forced to pay child support is slavery. Any employment they take is not by choice, right? It's by coercion.
Yeah,
This is why feminists always
yeah,
frame men being forced to do something as being allowed to, i.e., the draft. Men being forced to fight is cast as being allowed to fight. Gender roles, men being forced to support women under the threat of imprisonment, as phrased as men being allowed to work. Yeah, it's gaslighting. And actually, men are not being allowed to work. Actually, their work's been taken away from men now. This is ridiculous. As a man claiming female rape victims are privileged because they're allowed to have sex, or slaves are privileged because they're allowed to work, or conscripted men are privileged because they're allowed to fight. Oh wait, the last one is real. This is by Marks and Trash, who's a scumbag. Masculinity is so fragile. You call up war combat stats, but forget women are literally not allowed to fight on the front line in some countries. So this scumfuck, this Lowland dog shit scumfuck loser piece of trash, right? So when men have valid complaints about being sent off to die in war against the will, its masculinity is so fragile, right? And this feminist
yeah,
mangina, because he's a male feminist, this feminist mangina scumfuck. Sorry for being so harsh, right? Any single complaint a woman makes, including tampon taxes, that's valid. Every complaint they make is valid, but real complaints about leading to men's death, its masculinity is so fragile. Get fucked, Mac. Your surname, trash. That's very apt because you are trash.
ex- exactly. I mean, this scumbag, you cannot be harsh enough to these kinds of people.
Yeah.
And he immediately frames it as like female victimhood that they're not allowed to fight on the front lines. Oh my
Yeah.
God. It's like
Feminists had a freak out over women getting drafted. Even a mere hint of women getting drafted in the USA, women had a freak out over it, right? And they went, but you don't have to us drafted as well. But you want to get rid of the draft completely when they did nothing to get rid of the draft. And the same feminists laughed and gloated at the thought of men getting drafted. But when there was even a hint, even talk of them getting drafted, they did it. They went, no. You don't want us drafted as well. We want to get rid of the draft. Then they'll
yeah,
never do anything to get rid of it. They're fucking
and
pathological
let's
liars.
let's not forget that feminists are very pro-war, beginning with like stuff like the white fetish campaign. where
Yeah,
they supported the First World War and
yeah.
wanted men to be killed there.
Well, it's not even feminist. Let's not even talk about feminists. Let's not even talk about feminists, right? This is anecdotal. I was online friends with a bunch of people, and one of them I found out she was a feminist, and she was a married woman, and she was married to a military man, right, who worked in the military, American military. So women spread their legs for military men, right? They incentivize that joining the army with Pavlovian reinforcement, basically. Okay, and basically she blamed men for causing wars, right? Right? Men caused all wars, but this woman was married to an army vet. Okay, he was in the army, so he was getting provision by the army, and she was living off it, and she was blaming wars on men. So women spread their legs for men at war, right? Like French women
It's
opened their legs for German occupiers.
incentivizing.
Yeah, French women opened their legs for German occupiers. Right, Wah, opened it. And the thing is, after the war's end, they didn't get arrested as traitors. They just got the haircut and got food thrown over them or stuff like that. They got humiliated. Like, like a man in that situation will get the death penalty for being a traitor. Okay, myth. Let's get on with it. Myth one: men don't want to stay at home. A 2007 survey by employment website Monster.com found that 8% of fathers would be stay-at-home parents if money were no object. So Monster.com is not a men's rights site. That's a big mainstream employment site. Okay, that's
Yeah,
completely impartial data. Warren Farrell reported in The Myth of Male Power that 80% of men surveyed said if they could stay at home with no loss of income or the wife's approval, they would. Only 3% said they preferred to work full time. Actually, we can actually take out the loss of income. They'll take a small hit of income. It's the wife's approval is the most important thing, in my opinion. Right?
yeah,
80% of men who did quit their job after having a child to stay at home said they're glad they did. 63% of fathers say they didn't spend as much time as they want with the kids compared to 35% of mums. Okay, this is all sourced, by the way. You can all
yes. There are lots of sources.
so you can look this up and boom, check it out. Only
Yeah,
10.
but the first part shows you that it is women pushing these gender roles of the breadwinner onto men,
Yes,
right?
breadwinner is a euphemism, basically. The provider slave is more an apt term. I don't like these crowd called
Yeah,
euphemisms. Right, breadwinner. Okay, you're not winning fucking bread. You know what? They're not baking bread either. They're fucking working and gaining status. Right. Only only 10% of British part-time female workers surveyed expressed an interest in working full-time. Now, this is particularly disgusting when you realise that women are actually pushing men out of higher education and out of work, right? And what happens a lot of the time, women
yeah,
actually push men out of university, right, with affirmative action, and when they get their degree, they don't even end up using it. So the chaos and damage
yeah.
that women cause men is immense. Among women at home with children less than 18, only 16%, less than 1 in 6, say they want to work outside the home full time. Okay, no one wants to work full time, to be honest. If people had the option of working part time, most people would work part time, which drops to 12% of the children are young. Okay, among the stay-at-home mothers, only 22% say the increase in working mothers with young children is a good thing for society, because it's nothing to do about being good for society. It's what's good for them. Right, here's the data here. Right, for women with children who do not work full time outside the home, more than half want to change to working part time or not working at all. So basically these women they don't want to work, then they want to put the burden on the man. Okay, and women actually get very
Yes.
hostile and aggressive towards men who don't work.
But at the same time, then they complain about things like wage gap and things like, oh, there are not so many female CEOs, and look
Gaslighting.
how, yeah, yeah, it's like they don't want to work, but at the same time they want to complain about the
No, 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 no,
fact that,
no, no, no. Also, they're not just complaining. They're doing it for two reasons. Women have got an instinct to invalidate and belittle men. So it's basically men are working to provide for women. That women are actually attacking them for it. Oh no, men are working. They're earning all this money, right? So it's to remove gratitude, so, to show no gratitude. And second, it's to cover the fact they're not working and are parasiting off men, right? They're
yeah,
deny victim, reverse offender. That's what they're doing. Women are 38% more likely to file for divorce if she works more than her husband than vice versa, and 29% more likely to divorce if they had to increase the number of hours worked outside the home in the last 5 years, as the Atlantic reported. Two facts are often obscured in the public conversation devoted to women, work, and family. First, the vast majority of married mothers don't want to work full time. Okay, this has been shown repeatedly in multiple different sources, by the way. It's not just one person's anecdotal story. Okay, but we've all seen it ourselves with our own anecdotal experiences, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are millions of men have experienced this,
Yes.
and there's even a recent study, even the Guardian reported on it, that if women win in the lottery, that they are more likely to divorce, and if men win the lottery, they're actually staying in the marriage.
Yeah. So those women are scum then, as far as I'm concerned. Like relationships by these women, they're scumbags. They're entering relationships under false pretenses. Second, married mothers who are able to cut back at work to accommodate their family's needs, that's a euphemism, nothing to do with their family's needs, tend to be happier. The news cycle is stuck in a lean and loop, but new data shows mothers report more happiness when they can lean homeward. Right. So basically, they're happy when they put more burdens on men. Okay. So
Yeah,
80% of women said they would ostracize a man who failed to provide for his family as he should. So these parasite scumbags want to stop working, but want to shame men who don't provide for their family. And also, I don't like the term "his family." That actually offends me because it's only his family when it's time to pay. When every other regard, spending time with them, having rights to see them, right, having a say in their upbringing and bringing of the family, it's not his family. It's a really hypocritical stance as far as I'm concerned. Feminists in particular have repeatedly complained about declining alimony, men paying so women don't have to support themselves. If you want alimony, you're a parasite and scumbag and slaver. In 1985, Roper survey, only 10% of women declared that husbands should turn down a very good job in another city so the wife can continue her job. Okay, so it shows you the entitlement. As an overview of multiple studies across Europe concluded that only 14 to 20% of women aged 16 plus are work centred, which it defines as commit to work on or equivalent activities. The author concludes men are work centred because they have to be. Men are not work centred; they're woman centred. Right? If men could get the woman without the work, they wouldn't work. It's just that simple.
yeah,
Okay. Feminists constantly complain that men are not doing their fair share of domestic work. This is gaslighting again. It's very fucking cheap. Again, it's erasing the context of what men do. Right? Men give them money, work for them, give them money, give them a good lifestyle, and they're complaining. This is fucking disgusting. Every
yeah.
single woman who complains about this is a fucking psychopath. Period.
And
And
and and when men also do a lot of work in the household, a lot of repairings and mowing the lawn and repairing fences
yeah, but
and
even so, even if women did 100% of the housework, 100%, it would still not compensate for work, right? Period. You can't
yeah.
compare it, okay? Like people manage to hold down jobs and still manage to do housework and repair things. So housework is not equivalent to a work. So we could discount the complaints on its own terms completely. I don't care if men do fucking fences or repair electronical stuff, right? I don't care if women do 100% of the housework. They've got no right to complain about it. Fuck off. Fuck off.
Yeah, they directly benefit. If I clean my house, I'm the one benefiting from this.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
it's like it's not the same as a job where
Yeah.
someone else actually benefits. So
Yes. Several well-entrenched feminists have been overturned. Men do substantially more hours of paid work. Martin Nitko, a professional career coach, reports over the past 70 years, I've been a career coach to 1,500 middle-aged and upper-class women and to 500 middle to upper-class men. Because of a relationship confidentiality, I've learned much about what women really think on a number of issues. Yeah. Most surprising to me is that at least half of the women, including many graduates of elite colleges, either don't want an income earning job or only work part time in an unusually pleasant job. And basically, these pleasant jobs women gatekeep and exclude men from, by the way, taking more choices away from them. This is actually an act of hostile aggression. Women's relationships are an act of aggression against men. There's some sort of passive, sadistic hostility directed towards men coming from women. And this has to be
yes,
exposed.
and
Yeah,
yes, and in a lot of human resource departments where a lot of hiring takes place, it is dominated by women, and
yeah,
studies have shown that they usually hire more women than, and they discriminate against men in the hiring process.
yes,
And this is a large factor why many men end up being unemployed, which
yeah.
hurts them economically and psychologically.
Actually, there's been gaming companies that have been destroyed by this phenomenon as well. Okay, there's been quite a few of them been destroyed by it. So basically,
Yeah.
women are not interested in games as much as men, right? They're more casual. They don't know how to program, most of them. They don't know how to code, right? But they take over the company and steer the direction of the company, and they end up alienating the male audience, and the company goes under. It happened to Saint Rose, this latest Saint Rose game. It happened to Halo. They haven't gone bankrupt yet, but they destroyed Halo, right? Because they just hire women and women, women, and there's not enough programmers. Feminists in particular are not happy about the increase in work for women. So if they're not happy about the increase of work for women, why do they want it more for men? They're scum. Some recently demanded that in order to achieve gender equality, right, the league we got to reject their equality framing completely, right? The legal maximum working hour limits must be lowered to 34 hours a week for women, but kept at 48 hours for men. Scum, just scum. That's equivalent of a white person saying, "I want black people to work more than I do and slave away." It's equivalent, same equivalent to that. Complete scum fuckery. I'm sorry, scum. Feminists are the gender KKK. They're scum. And also, wanting to force people to work is one of the traits of the right. It's a statistic trait of the right, right? It's very common.
Yeah. And for the audience, you need to understand that when feminists say gender equality, they mean female supremacy.
Yeah, it's a lie. Basically, they're just lying. It's
Yeah.
like it's Adolf Hitler. Adolf Hitler talking about racial equality while he's gassing the Jews, right? It's equivalent of that. I'm sorry. In early agricultural societies, women worked by grinding grain for as much as 5 hours a day to make flour, in addition to tilling the soil and harvesting crops by hand. Myth three: women were not allowed to work outside the home, right? Confirmed by studies of ancient Egypt, which show that almost all non-aristocratic women worked, including spinning, combing, and carding cloth, because they had to work to survive, right? And soon as there's less work to go around, you don't need to work to survive. They dump all the work on men. They don't share the reduced burdens 50-50. They dump it on men, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Ancient Egyptian wall paintings showed a woman sewing while a man plows. From the 13th to the 7th century, most brewers were women. A survey in 2028 found 8% of brewers in towns were female. I didn't know that. Percentage of ale sales by married female brewers in 14th century brewery means a female brewer. The norms of most women working lasted until the industrial era. I know that. A study of 1,300 working class households from early 19th century Britain suggests that husband's proportion of family earning was as low as 55%. So in the past, before the industrial revolution, that's the closest to equality we had, right? Between 1787 to 1815, in families with unemployed children, wives earned 41% of household income. In the same period, 66% of married women had a recorded occupation. So only families who were rich enough, women didn't work. In 1833, women made up of 57%, the majority of factory workers, right? So even tradcons go women working is a recent phenomenon. You know, they tell that lie, okay? And,
Yeah.
the Rockefellers tricked women into education and the workforce and all sorts of conspiracy nonsense. Women have always worked. Period.
Yeah, exactly. They were never gate kept from being worked or anything like that.
It,
So these feminists, the feminist theory of history that, oh, look how there are uh, less women CEOs today because of some historical lineage where women couldn't work or something is total bullshit.
Even in labour-intensive agricultural work, significant numbers of women worked. However, by 1851, the proportion of married women who worked had dropped to 30%. That's the effect of industrialisation. So the share of household income generated by women started to decline rapidly from 1830 onwards. Now, this is interesting. This is when the tender years doctrine happened. There was actually two tender years doctrines. One's in 1830 something and one in 1870 something. Okay, so the more women gain freedom, the more restrictions they put on men. Right, the more freedom women gain, the more burdens they put on men. Okay, notably
Yeah, this is a betrayal of men.
yes, notably this involved increased leisure for women and children. No, not children, because they did they outlawed women working dangerous jobs in factories in the Victorian era, but didn't outlaw young boys. With the percent of income generated by men increasing from 55 in 1831 up to 81% in 1816 to 1865. Jesus Christ, that's actually one of the most rapid changes in modern history when you think about it. So that's I think that's linked to imperialism in some way, right? Plundering,
Yeah.
building up the infrastructure of empire, plundering. So by
Yeah, that
1890,
that that shows you that women actually benefit from imperialism and war
yes,
and have a reason to incentivize that.
yeah. So Marxist analysis of imperialism, if it without gender dynamics, it's incomplete. Then by
Yeah.
1890, women's work in Europe and the United States contributed just Jesus, not look at just 1.9 to 3% of household income. Disgusting, disgusting, absolutely fucking disgusting.
Wow.
Jesus Christ,
Wow.
the fucking wage gap, the fucking wage gap, the fucking wage gap. Fuck you. Entirely because of married women being supported by their husbands. By 1887, 75% of female workers in American cities were under 25 years old. 96% were single. Okay. By 1911, only 25% of British women worked. So, there you go. By 1920, in the USA, women were only 21% of unemployed adults. Yeah.
It shows you that this was by choice. Women chose to do that.
Yes. The more options you give women, the more they choose their gender roles, right? The more feminine women
Yeah.
get, the more violent society gets. Women are actually more feminine in Latin America, and there's higher rates of violence. Okay. We can speculate that this was because the extra wealth from industrialization meant it became possible for some people to not work outside the home, and women got this benefit. Yeah, but women are the gender bourgeoisie. Women benefit from male surplus labor, right? Like feminists try to
Yeah.
gaslight us and pretend there's like women were the proletariat and men were the bourgeoisie. No, no, women are the bourgeoisie. They're gender
Yeah.
parasites.
This buffoon Engels gets destroyed by these facts.
Yeah, and he was a rich man who bribed red-haired women to sleep with him as well. So it was no different, basically. Like Marx and Engels complained about rich men bribing women and seducing working-class women. He was doing the same fucking thing with his wealth. What a cunt. This was supported by the fact that the total working hours have dropped by almost half since 1870. Okay, this is a good overview of late Victorian areas. Still more women working outside the home than feminists claim, but far fewer than pre-industrialization. This change from the vast majority of women working pre-1850s to a small percentage by 1920s was overwhelmingly welcomed by women and universally seen as a benefit to women. Right? Okay, so they weren't in gaslighting mode yet. John Stuart Mill thought that it's not a desirable custom that the wife should contribute by her labour to the income of the family. Jesus, have you noticed how they changed the narrative when it's convenient? Actually,
Yes, and John Stuart Mill was a feminist. I think he wrote a book titled "On the Subjugation of Women" or something.
yeah.
So he was an early feminist, and Ernest Balfour Bucks actually made a response pamphlet titled "The Legal Subjugation of Men" or something.
Right. Okay. Well, I'm going to have to look into context of that sometime. The German government stated in 1940 the goal was to remain to ensure that in 20 years' time no woman is obliged to work in a factory. They had their priorities straight in 1940 then, didn't they? Okay, that's funny to me. I'm sorry. Tradcon Nazis get wrecked. In the Soviet Union, when mothers got permission to work part time instead of full time, and fathers still had to work full time, this was welcomed as liberating by women's groups. By the by the way, Tradcons now still don't want women to work in the modern era. So the more things change, the more they stay the same. Even as late 1915, women's rights campaigner Camilla Black was complaining about the fact that married women as well as single women had to work to earn money. The shamelessness of these parasites. Zero gratitude towards men as well. Zero gratitude, right?
Yeah,
These married women who, because the family income is adequate, do earn are the most overworked, the harder pressed, and probably the most unhappiest working women. Such a mother will often sharp of tongue and irritable temper. Life offers her neither rest nor hope. You see, they they're sentimental about the plight of these women, but they don't give a fuck about men in the same predicament who have it much worse.
Yeah.
She scurries through her household work that she may spend an extra 10 minutes at a monotonous toll and receive an extra farthing at the weekend. The premature collapse of a child's boots is a disaster that disturbs all her calculations. The man's the context of earning father is erased from this. A day's illness is an indulgence that she dares not afford herself. As a child grows up and goes out to work, the pressure relaxes a little. If she's fortunate and unmarried, the daughter remains with her until the end. I'm smelling a bit bullshit here because if it's such a burden to have kids, why are these women having so many kids? I don't get it, right? So I think this is lies. And if she lives to be 70 years old, a pension gives her the gratification of feeling herself rather than a help than a burden. Women don't ever worry about being a burden. She'll be anxious still, saying sometimes to herself and her daughter, "What will you do when I'm gone?" But she'll no longer be the grinding daily anxiety of bygone years. She'll know no pleasures. She'll still work, but she'll know the intervals of rest, and these, though she'll not know it, will be the happiest years of her life. This is just lies, in my opinion. This is
This was
projection.
written. Yeah, this was written by the feminists
Yes,
Clementina Black, and
yes,
uh, you can see that she is basically speaking like a total trad con, right?
yes.
But
But
nowadays,
she's taking the plight of men and applying it to women to gaslight.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
And she's speaking like a total trad con.
yeah.
And but nowadays, feminists, when there are more easy jobs, safe, clean office jobs, then they are like, oh yeah, women should get these jobs before men do.
Yes. Now, I believe we've got the worst of both worlds right now. Okay. I believe we either have a completely equal society or we have a men first society. And that means men get jobs first. Right? If we can't get jobs equally, the jobs have to go to men first because they're more important for men. It's just that simple. Women don't need jobs as much as men because they get the gender roles of not working and parasiting off men, but they also get the gender roles of getting jobs first. It's disgusting. It's disgusting. And
Yeah, they're getting the double benefit.
yeah. They're getting the benefits of traditionalism and they're getting the benefits of progressivism, basically, selectively, because it's not really
Yeah,
progressive. Okay. During World War II, when many women had to work in war factories, it was found that women had been made miserable by the war work and frequently wished themselves back into the pre-war home routine. That's why lots of British women spread their legs for American GIs, by the way. During World War II, I don't mind women being sluts and whores, okay, but they're just so manipulative about it. That's the problem I have. During World War II, the British and the UK government spent a fortune on propaganda encouraging women to work, but less than 40% of women of working age in both countries took it up. This just shows you what psychopaths women were. Okay, we say with hindsight that Britain really wasn't under existential threat from Germany at the time because they weren't able to cross the channel, right? But we didn't know this at the time. Okay, Britain was under existential threat from their point of view, right? There was a time when we thought we was going to lose the war, right? And only 40% of women worked in factories and chipped in. The other 60% couldn't be bothered, right?
wow.
That could have led to the defeat of Britain when you think about it. That shows you what psychopaths they are. I'm sorry, they're psychopaths. They're psychopaths. Yeah. So this is just a myth. You know what I mean? we can do it, but we don't want to do it. That'd be more accurate. Men were not given a choice. Women with children stayed at home only in a brief exponential period of human history, which had lasted less than 150 years, the norm being both sexes working all the waking hours. So now women are actually destroying the family unit and pushing fathers out. Myth 4. Historically, men were not forced to work outside the home. This is usually phrased as men were allowed to. This is it's gaslighting weasel words, which implies that they were not forced to. See the introduction. This was they're implemented by forcing men to support women and take sole responsibility to support children. For all but the most privileged men, this means having to work. As early as 92 BC, men were first forced to support their wives by law. Yeah, men who refused to support their wives were legally punished under Roman law. Under the common law of coverture, which existed in England from at least 1660 to the 19th century and America until 1839, a wife was entitled to be maintained by her husband. That's enforced gender roles. If she got into any debts, the husband had to pay. Like, the feminists just erase this, don't mention it. So
Yeah,
the worst type of lie is erasing context. If he refused, he could be imprisoned in debtor's prison. Wives could not be sued or imprisoned for debt. So that means that women are a higher caste. Okay?
Yeah, it's matriarchy.
Yeah. It's because of this in the 18th century text said that married woman is the favourite of the law and described England as the paradise of women. Okay. Have you noticed it's always, oh, things are good for women now, but it was worse in the past nonsense. Always gets
Yeah,
claimed. Yeah.
yeah, this has been debunked.
Yeah. Coverture was only legally abolished by Married Women's Property Act of 1882 in the UK. Men were responsible for paying women income tax for much longer, and this was exploited by suffragettes to send their husbands to jail by simply refusing to pay tax. That's psychopathic. An article from 1912 notes, uh, under the Married Women Property Act, a husband has no jurisdiction over his wife's property and income. Under the income tax, he's responsible for her taxes. If the taxes are not paid, the husband, not the wife, is imprisoned. Mrs. Wilkes refused to pay her income tax, £185, and her husband was locked up. He'll spend the rest of his life in prison unless the wife pays or the law is changed. In 1660, a Viennese noblewoman wrote, that's a city-state in Italy, by the way. It's a marvellous sight in our city to see the wife of a shoemaker or a butcher or even a porter all dressed up with gold chains around her neck. Narcissism. Bling bling narcissism, right? With pearls and valuable rings on her finger, accompanied by a pair of women on either side to assist her and give her a hand, and then by contrast to see her husband cut up meat, all soiled with ox's blood, and down on a hill, all unloaded up like a beast of burden dressed in rough cloth. Wow! So it's a marvellous sight to see men working and slaving and being dirty, and seeing their wives be all jewelled up and prettied up, acting like aristocrats. That is contempt of men. In France, men may not
Yeah,
even spend a cent unless it's at the request of their wives. And women not only administrates business dealings and sales, but private income as well. So okay, this is a lot of myths busted here. So my
yeah,
insight that women are dominant over men is 100% true. In the not
100%.
Yes,
Yes.
in the 19th, you see, this is we can't go, oh, feminists don't want equality, feminism is not equality, blah blah blah, right? No, women are dominant and they have more rights than men, and they oppress men. That's how it should be framed. The equality discourse has
Yes.
to end, basically, because it's still framed around women getting equality. No, no, women are privileged oppressors. In the
Yeah, they're
19th,
the bourgeoisie.
yeah, and also for men, equality is not enough. We got to push past equality, as far as I'm concerned. We, as a men's rights movement, we got to push, 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 and get as much as we can, right?
We need pro-male socialism.
Yes. In the 19th century, women could sue their husbands for maintenance while still married, and if she won, the man could be imprisoned. Yeah, slavery. Even after the English common law of coverture was replaced, men were legally obliged to support their wives. This was reinforced in the successive acts of Parliament in 1861, 1881, 1920, and 1964. Jesus Christ. Yeah. Even after the official end of coverture in Britain with the Married Women's Property Act of 1802, husbands were liable for debts their wives had from before they were married. Men could and were in prison for not paying their wives' debts. Obviously, lots of men were going to be ambushed, right? There's going to be women that wouldn't tell them about their debts. It happens now, actually.
Yeah,
The obligation to support his wife stayed in force even if the couple lived apart, even if she had abandoned him and was no obligation on her. Note, divorces were extremely difficult to attain in this period. Okay, now I want to point out something here. The claim that women weren't allowed to divorce is gaslighting, right? Divorce actually benefited men more than women, and men were not allowed to divorce. It's not women who were not
yeah,
allowed to divorce. Not being a divorce didn't affect women. The only thing it stopped them doing was marrying again and getting a new slave. Around 1901, this newspaper published this heartfelt letter from 37 husbands jailed from non-support, begging their wives to let them out just for the upcoming holiday. This editor had no sympathy and response that men who don't support their wives and children are committing a serious crime. And have you noticed? The same as the pro-child support scum fucks today. And have you noticed they bring
yeah,
children into it as well? They always bring children into it, which pisses me off. And they deserve to be punished for not doing their duty. No, though married, the support is referred to as alimony. During the so it's hyper agency basically. The women run away, run up debts on them, right? And the society still expects them to support them. Scum, absolutely fucking scum. Anyone who is pro-child, look, if someone comes up to me and says I'm pro-paedophile and I believe I should have a legal right to sleep with children, I'm gonna call him a scumbag and say get away from me, you scumbag, right? By the same token, if someone comes up to me and says they're pro child support or pro alimony and men should pay up and they're deadbeats, I consider them on par as paedophiles. I'm sorry. Because they're pro slavery, basically. They're sick, disgusting individuals. I'm sorry. I just go, you're pro child support. Get out of here. Fuck off. Get away from me, you freak. That's how I react. They're freaks. They're scum. I block pro child support scumbags, by the way. So,
Yeah, as you should. And what is also interesting to note is this problem that even back in the day existed with alimony.
yeah.
This is one of the reasons why early men's rights activists and early men's rights groups were focusing around alimony issues.
Yes.
Because this is suppressed history. This is unknown to many
Yeah.
people. They
Don't
think
know.
that some people even in the men's rights movement, they think that the men's rights movement began
Yeah.
with people like Warren Farrell or something.
Yes.
No, early men's rights activists go way back,
Yeah.
actually.
Well, there's a lot of stuff goes down the memory hole. It gets memory hole on purpose. Under Sharia Islamic, I'm not going to read the letter because it's long. Under Sharia, you can actually, like I said, you can find this. I'll put the link in the description. You can find this yourself and check out the sources and read this letter yourself. Under Sharia law, a man must support his wife. Allah has ordained men to earn the living of his wife and children. Now, I want to interject something here. There's a lot of misconceptions about Sharia our law in the UK. They think it means that men have the right to beat and murder their wives basically and rape them. People in the UK think that. That's what Sharia law means that the man can force the woman to cover up and keeps her in the home as a sex slave. That's not it at all. It's nonsense. Sharia law
Yeah.
actually protects women and gives them privileges over men. A husband is obliged to earn a living for his wife and fulfill all her needs, although his wife is a rich woman. The riches of a wife doesn't nullify her right. So this is just sadism, which is the obligation of her husband. But any money a married woman earns is her own, and she has no obligation to spend it or support her husband or children. Right. So what this is laws set up by high status men because they can pay the costs, right? But this puts burdens on lower status men. So this is actually hostility from high status men to low status men. This is actually very common. Hindu law also says a man must support his wife, right? The Constitution of the Republic of Ireland, written in 1937, explicitly states women and only women shall not be obliged to work. Jesus Christ. Right. Okay.
This is female privilege on steroids.
And it's a very Catholic, conservative country like back then. Obviously, this means fathers are obliged to work more as a consequence. This is still in the Irish Constitution as of 2018. This blog was written in 2018. The obligations for husbands to support their wives also applied after divorce in Victorian England. A divorced woman had the right to be maintained at a level which she had been accustomed. Which that's fucking deranged. So a woman breaks a relationship up, right? But she doesn't pay the consequences of breaking a relationship up. Why the fuck should be maintained at the rate that she's been accustomed to? She broke the relationship up. You actually have to be a psychopath to think that's a valid rule, right? And similarly, in the USA, the law was highly gendered. In 1979, the United States Supreme Court struck down an Alabama law that denied alimony to a person simply because he was male. Okay. In practice, now these days, the obligation on men is mostly enforced by women divorcing and claiming mummy, child support, or threatening to do so. This is called slavery, child support slavery, child support rape. Child support is slavery, child support is rape. Hashtag. Right? Currently in the USA, men make up only 3% of alimony recipients, and campaigners admit alimony laws are only now being reformed due to the fact that now some women are having to pay it. Can you imagine? Can you imagine if a society admitted that the law's only being reformed because only some white people are being affected by it now?
Yeah,
It's only
there
affecting
would
black
be
people.
there would be an outrage.
Yes, it'd be called racism. Yeah. By the way,
But
sexism, the term sexism, there's no such thing as sexism towards women, as far as I'm concerned. Sexism
yeah,
means sexism against men. It's not reverse sexism, it's sexism against men, right? And
there's only sexism against men.
yes, women face some blowback from their female privilege when other women victimize other women, the women don't get punished. That's about the only example I can think of. The end result of this is over twice as many married fathers work full time as mothers. 60% of full time workers are men, and men who work full time work 3.8 hours more per week. So fathers of children under 18 work 27 hours a week, and mothers only 21. Mothers spend almost twice as much as with their children as fathers do. They're gatekeeping access to the children. The scum. 43% of married mothers and 38% of married fathers work full time. Even when housework is included, British men work longer hours in total than women do when there are children in the house, largely because men often have to work more overtime, while the wives often switch to part-time jobs or leave employment altogether. That is just complete contempt. Unsurprisingly, housewives have more leisure time, even when housework is included, than married fathers, 4.2 hours more. Okay, you can look at this up yourself. I've got really bad eyesight anyway. Can't read that font. Despite feminist claims that they're against traditional gender roles, which is a lie, they are defending and promoting this. Yeah. The NOW, National Organisation for Women, I've talked about this before, has systematically campaigned against equal custody after divorce because they hate men. Something that would drastically cut down, if not eliminate, mummy support orders. It has done this since the 70s. It means it's done protests against it since the 70s. I've seen feminists say, oh, men only want to have equal custody to the kids so they don't pay child support. So that's the equivalent of saying, oh, men only want the law reformed so they don't get enslaved. So basically, men only want the law changed. They only want access to their children so they don't get victimized with slavery. Jesus Christ, they're psychopaths. According to the National Parents Organisation, since 1974, around when child support started to replace alimony as the main income for separated mothers, no feminist organisation has ever supported an equal parenting bill, and many have outright opposed them. You get feminists who gaslight and say, "Oh, not all feminists are like that." There's feminists who are for equal shared parenting. No, none of them are. It's gaslighting. Like,
Yeah, it's a no true Scotsman fallacy.
yeah, feminists complain loudly when women don't get custody and therefore child support. Agony of being a 50-50 mum. Women once held the upper hand in custody battles. Now fathers are winning equal access and mothers are struggling to cope. Nicholas Huet, 42, an office manager from Kenley, Surrey, faces the trauma of being without children. Devon Tennant's Sunny, 8 every weekend. She doesn't give a shit about her children, by the way. Right? Veronica Sweeney Bird, a 33-year-old bar worker from Tunbridge Wells, a week on, week off shared care arrangement for her two daughters. Mother is having to divide time with the children equally with their exes. Every mother lives for their small joyful moments when their child masters something new, a book once too challenging, the telling of a joke previously stumbled over, and a food devoured that had formlessly been rejected. This is complete fucking garbage. They're getting 50% time, right? And fathers get alienated and get no time, but they're so over dramatic over this. The mothers are not missing out time with their children. They're getting equal fucking time. Well, this should be for the fathers who don't get any time. All right, I'm not reading the rest of that nonsense. That's just garbage. Women and children have stayed in the home only in a brief exceptional period in human history, which has lasted less than 200 years. The norm being both sexes working or waking hours. This system was welcomed by women and resisted by men. It's enforced by laws against men, including imprisonment and public shaming, with no legal enforcement needed to be used against women. Yeah. Prior to the Industrial Revolution, there was a justification for forcing married men to support women, as the amount of work done by both was comparable, and this ensured children born with the consent of the man implicit in the marriage should be supported. I disagree with that, right?
Yeah,
Women could, if they support, men should be supported. I mean, women should be forced to support their children as well, when or not. After the Industrial
yeah,
Revolution, the amount of work done by women relative to man drastically reduced, but the same laws and attitudes applied, resulting in men being forced to support women against men's and society's interests. This female privilege being enforced by social institutions is legal system and latterly the media and the feminist-controlled media. With female contraception, the sexual revolution, and the application of child support laws to unmarried fathers, we now have the situation where any woman can have a whim force any man who has unprotected sex with her into economic slavery up to 18 years. With this and no fault divorce, any married father can be forced into the same at the wife's whim. The results of men being forced into the most dangerous, dirty, and degraded jobs, with women doing less work overall and the easiest and least unpleasant jobs. This is well known to young people planning careers, and results that older people studying for the most well-paid jobs are men. And also, I think it's overstating the threat, forcing men to do this. It's men doing this to earn the women as well. That's how crazy men are. They know the risks, but they still want to get status to earn the woman, right? Okay. So
yeah,
men's desire to be with women is a psychological vulnerability, right? It shouldn't be exploited, but society does. Okay.
yeah. But you also have to keep in mind that this is like the only way in which these men even have a chance to reproduce, right, and to
Yes.
have a family,
Yes.
which is
Exactly.
like an innate drive in every
And
biological
it's not
being.
even just a reproduction drive, because I think that's a secondary instinct. I think men have an innate instinct that's stronger to be with women, right? Socially, it's very
Yeah.
strong, and it's getting taken advantage of, unfortunately. I don't think you can ever get rid of it completely, right? But yeah, so you. This is why I don't actually believe in MGTOW. I personally avoid marriage, but I don't think MGTOW's the solution because of this reason. You have to get rid of marriage laws, right? Completely. So men can't be taken advantage of. Like, they'll still be taken
Yeah.
advantage of, but it shouldn't be aggravated by the laws to make made worse, right? Okay. To achieve equality, we have to reject feminist framing of all gender roles as a oppression of women by the patriarchy, and instead recognise that men are disadvantaged in many ways, including work and family. I'll state this even stronger. We have to recognise that women are privileged. We live in a female supremacist society, and only men are disadvantaged on an institutional, systematic level.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
This 100%.
If society's serious about destroying gender roles, we must. Well, they're not, are they? Demand equal treatment in the family courts so men get equal custody, and also so custody is only given in exceptional cases. I personally believe any parent, it's a gender neutral term, but this will affect mothers. Any parent who tries parental alienation games should lose the custody of the kids, because that's actually a massive red flag of narcissism and psychopathy, right? Right? So
Yeah.
they should just lose access to the kids. Mothers who do this should lose access to the kids, period. Make sure child support is only paid in exceptional cases. I don't agree in child support, period. Welfare. Make sure that any child support is limited to only supporting the child by using food vouchers and receipts. No. Welfare. Remove all laws that say men have to support women. I agree with that. If these are implemented, then we can expect to see the pay gap disappear and equal numbers of female CEOs, engineers, equal numbers of women studying in STEM subjects. No, you won't. Even then, you wouldn't. But there's further reading down here, but you can check this out yourself.
Yeah,
So,
this has many citations.
yeah,
This is a well-written article that actually completely destroys the whole
yeah,
Engels' Origin of the Family
yeah.
book.
Well, as Engels said in that book, tribal societies where women can kick fathers out the home, away from their families, and make them move elsewhere is equality. But patriarchal societies where men can protect their lineage and hand down property to their sons is oppression of women. So basically, women controlling their own spaces and dominating over men's equality, but men protecting their own space and their own lineage and having things their own interest is oppression of women, right? They say that because they recognise men being able to do that is men protecting themselves from female social dominance, right? Okay,
Yeah.
all right, yeah. So Engels was a mangina, so yeah, and so was
And
Marx.
yeah, and where are all the Marxists who are constantly complaining about surplus extraction of the workers,
Yeah,
which is true,
yeah,
but they don't complain about child support, slavery, and alimony.
yes, yeah. Yeah, the thing is, when you work, you can benefit from work. You get promoted, you get paid more, right? When you get a relationship as a man, you get nothing but burdens. So it's actually the relationship between men and women is actually worse than relationships between workers and bosses, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. So because actually, work
and
there's,
and
there's
and the
there's
and
capitalists
the
who are
boss,
actually more. There's actually quite rich capitalists who are quite more moderate, who want to give the working class more crumbs, right? Okay, to keep them
yeah,
contented. But women's groups just want it. Oh, they want more, more, more. They just carry on attacking, stripping men of rights. So
yeah,
feminists are doing a culture war right now because they just want to carry on attacking men. They want to find new fields to expand to and attack men, and marginalize them.
yeah. It's getting extreme. I
Yes,
mean,
yeah,
and
like
the capitalist at the very least doesn't take away the children
yes,
from the man.
yes, yeah, yeah. And the thing is, men are actually more egalitarian if you've got a shared hobby. Because I'm actually quite good at chess, right? Right, and I actually hung around with a lot of rich people back in the day. I actually hung around with millionaires, got to know them quite well, and I was included in their social circle simply because we had a common interest, and I was good at chess. Okay, like higher status women, no, you're not a chance if you're a lower status man, right? Because women are more status orientated than men. There's been studies showing that men are more egalitarian than women and more left wing than women. Actually, this right wing idea that women are socialists and women are left wing and men are right wing is false. Actually, like I said, women are the gender bourgeoisie.
Yes, historically, women actually voted more right wing than men,
Yes,
and men were at the forefront of most progressive revolution.
Yes, and when it gains traction, the women take over and colonize and like we're gonna do we're gonna do a hangout on that Marx. I'm gonna do a video on that Marx. I'm trying to get more information, but I'm gonna do a video on that Midwestern Marx, and I want to talk about the group dynamics of it as well because that actually interests me. I want to talk about it from that point of view because basically those women are showing up and they're just taking over and having it their own way, and they're spewing
Yeah,
nonsense. They're spewing stuff that's actually in contradiction to Marxist theory. Actually, but they're Marxist incels are just so desperate for female validation, they don't challenge them. Female social dominance. So, yeah. By the
yeah,
way, they call us incels. By the way, I'm just making that fucking clear. Like, if you object to them even one, if you object to them even a little bit, they'll call you an incel to shut you up.
yeah. I mean, even if it were known, even if it were known to the other person that the guy is married or
Yeah.
anything like that, or is in a relationship, they would still call him an incel if he disagrees with feminists.
Yes. Yeah. So I've said everything I need to say on this. Have you got anything to add?
No, I think this is a well-written article overall and
Yes.
destroys many feminists' lies and propaganda,
Yes.
especially about history.
Yes.
And yeah, and we can still see today that women do the most consumer spending
Yes.
and that women drive capitalism, they drive the economy, they do.
I just want to point out one thing. I want to make a very important point. Tradcons and Tradcon MRAs actually support this, right? Because they got so these men working gender roles being enforced on men is the base, is the foundation of male disrespect and male oppression, right? And Tradcon
Yeah,
men, they want this, they want this, they want to provide for women, be slaves to women, but they want men to be respected. You can't have it's a contradiction. You can't have it. You can't have both. Tradcons actually. This is why Tradcons support feminism. Even MRA Tradcons they support it on some extent. You call that misogyny. You debunk the historical repression of women. You get banned from most MRA groups. You go too far with it, right?
yeah.
Yeah. So I'm done. Are you?
So yeah, yeah, I pretty much got nothing to add, really.
Yeah.
This was a very well hangout,
Yes.
very good hangout.
Yes, and remember, hashtag feminism is the gender KKK. Hashtag feminism is the OG hate movement. Hashtag child support is slavery and rape. Hashtag circumcision is knife rape of babies. That's all I've got to say for now. Over and out.
Over and out.